Fentanyl Oxy death. On September 13, 2022, David Reed Churchill was at his apartment in Fayetteville, Arkansas, a 27-year-old former standout tennis player whose promising athletic career had been cut short by injury. Unable to manage the chronic pain that followed, Churchill had turned to online sources for relief, eventually navigating to Incognito Market, a dark web narcotics bazaar that processed more than $100 million in drug sales before its shutdown. He placed an order with a vendor called Red Light Labs, paying in cryptocurrency for what was listed as oxycodone. The pills arrived looking exactly like legitimate painkillers. That morning, Churchill took them at home alone. His father, Dr. David Churchill, grew concerned when his son stopped responding and drove to the apartment later that day. What he found was his son, half on the couch and half on the floor, cold and already gone. First responders arrived at the Fayetteville residence but could do nothing. Churchill was pronounced dead at the scene from fentanyl toxicity, the pills containing no oxycodone at all. Investigators linked the supply to Red Light Labs, whose operators later pleaded guilty in connection with multiple overdose deaths. At the federal sentencing of Incognito Market Administrator Lin Rui Xiang, Dr. Churchill delivered emotional victim impact testimony, only for defense filings to reveal that an FBI confidential human source had co-run the market for nearly 2 years, approving vendors and resolving disputes even as overdose reports mounted, raising devastating questions about how Reed Churchill's death could have been prevented. AlphaBay teen death. On February 16, 2017, 18-year-old Aisha Zugby Collins was living with her family in southeast Portland, Oregon, a teenager experimenting with substances beyond what local dealers could offer. Using her computer, she located a vendor operating under the name Peter the Great on a darknet marketplace, ordered a supply of U-47,700, a synthetic opioid nicknamed Pink that is roughly 7 to 8 times more potent than morphine, and had it shipped through the United States mail using cryptocurrency. That morning, family members found Aisha unresponsive in her bedroom and called Portland police and paramedics. At the scene, detectives noticed drug paraphernalia and packaging that did not belong to any known prescribed medication. Autopsy results confirmed she died from U-47,700 toxicity, a lab-made opioid that had only recently been formally scheduled, and that local investigators struggled to immediately identify. Forensic examination of her phone and laptop traced her purchases to the dark web handle Peter the Great, and investigators partnered with Homeland Security Investigations and postal inspectors to follow the mailing trail across the country. The probe led to Greenville, South Carolina, where Theodore Kleberod and associate Ana Milena Barrero were surveilled mailing dozens of suspicious parcels. Arrests followed, with searches revealing packaging identical to items tied to Aisha's death. The investigation linked the operation to overdoses in multiple states, and Aisha's case became one of the earliest widely reported examples of local law enforcement successfully piercing dark web anonymity to bring down a lethal mail-order drug business. Kleberod later died in custody before trial. Half-pill nitazene death. On April 7, 2022, 18-year-old Jetson Gordon was found unresponsive in his bedroom at a shared rental home in Melbourne, Victoria, by his flatmate Lachlan Young, who immediately called emergency services. Jetson had recently relocated from Mullumbimby, New South Wales, to Melbourne to pursue a carpentry apprenticeship, excited about the work but struggling with anxiety and bad reactions to prescribed medications. Feeling unable to trust doctors, he decided it would be safer to self-medicate, going onto the dark web to order what he believed were pharmacy-grade oxycodone tablets. A package postmarked from the United Kingdom arrived at the share house containing blue M-stamped pills that looked identical to legitimate oxy, stored in convincing blister packs. Jetson kept them on his desk, planning to use them for sleep and anxiety after long days of work. One night, he broke off half a tablet and swallowed it before going to bed. Paramedics attempted resuscitation when Young found him the next morning, but Jetson was pronounced dead at the scene, with half a tablet still in the bed. Toxicology identified the cause of death as N-pyrrolidino etonitazene, a nitazene-class synthetic opioid never approved for human use, and estimated to be 20 or more times stronger than fentanyl, with no oxycodone present in the pills at all. Investigators told the family it would be virtually impossible to trace the specific dark web vendor across the international cryptocurrency and postal trail. His parents began speaking publicly to warn other families about counterfeit painkillers laced with nitazenes, and Australian authorities issued national alerts about the growing threat of nitazene imports through mail. By the way, if you find this informative, I cover stories like these regularly. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. Now back to the video. Stanford fentanyl death. On January 17, 2020, 19-year-old Eitan Weiner was found unresponsive at the Theta Delta Chi fraternity house on the Stanford University campus in Palo Alto, California. Eitan was a sophomore, a club soccer goalkeeper, and the son of 2 Stanford professors, well-liked and embedded in campus life. His childhood friend Matthew Ming Carpenter, then 21, had been ordering blue M30 stamped pills advertised as Percocet from a dark web vendor, paying in cryptocurrency and having the packages mailed directly to the fraternity house. In the days before January 17th, Eitan and others in the house experimented with the pills, with at least one earlier non-fatal incident reported in civil filings. On the morning of the 17th, fraternity members found Eitan unresponsive and called Palo Alto Fire Department paramedics, who were unable to revive him. The coroner ruled his death an accidental fentanyl overdose, the counterfeit pills containing no legitimate oxycodone, only lethal doses of fentanyl. Investigators traced the supply to Carpenter, who admitted in court that he had purchased the drugs on the dark web and had them mailed to the house. He pleaded guilty and received probation and community service. A Santa Clara County judge later ruled that Eitan's parents could sue Carpenter under California's Drug Dealer Liability Act. Stanford suspended Theta Delta Chi for 6 years and issued campus-wide warnings that a single counterfeit M30 pill could be fatal. Eitan's parents also filed suit against Stanford and the fraternity, arguing the university had failed to act on visible warning signs. Brothers MDMA death. On Monday morning, December 1, 2014, staff checking rooms at the Grapes pub in Stoneclough, near Bolton, Greater Manchester, discovered 2 young men lying side by side, both dead. They were brothers, Jacques Lakeman, 20, a trainee chef and musician, and Torin Lakeman, 19, a second-year physics student at Aberystwyth University, both originally from Port St. Mary on the Isle of Man, and both enormous Manchester United supporters who had planned a football weekend together. Before the trip, Torin ordered high-purity MDMA powder from a Tor-based dark web vendor and had it delivered to their home on the island, carrying it with them to England. On Saturday, November 29th, the brothers attended the Manchester United vs. Hull City match, spent the day drinking, and returned to their room above the pub, where they took large doses of the dark web MDMA. Family and friends lost contact with them over Sunday. Missing person reports were filed when they did not return home as planned. The Monday morning discovery prompted emergency services to respond, but both brothers had been dead for some time. Post-mortem results showed each had MDMA blood concentrations far above levels associated with fatal toxicity, compounded by alcohol, with coroner Alan Walsh ruling both deaths the result of ecstasy misuse. Walsh explicitly linked the deaths to the ease of buying powerful substances via dark web home delivery, and wrote to Home Secretary Theresa May to raise the issue formally. Their father, Ray, later became a prominent advocate for legally regulated drug supply, arguing that tested, controlled substances might have saved his sons. Chronic pain death. On March 1, 2016, 27-year-old Mark Leslie Satch collapsed at his family home in Harrisdale, Perth, Western Australia, with his wife Kylie, who was pregnant with their second child, present in the house. Mark had been a physically active linesman for Western Power before a serious car crash in 2012 left him with debilitating spinal injuries. After cycling through specialist appointments and finding his requests for strong opioids declined due to addiction concerns, he began researching alternatives online and discovered U-47,700, known as U4 or Pinky, along with the sedative atizolam, available from overseas suppliers through dark web channels. On the day of his death, a new postal package of drugs had arrived. Mark told Kylie he had taken some atizolam as they drove together to collect their daughter from daycare, downplaying any risk. Later at home, Kylie brought their daughter to say goodnight and found Mark lying on his back, unresponsive, his lips blue. She called emergency services immediately and attempted basic first aid. Paramedics rushed Mark to Fiona Stanley Hospital in Murdoch, where staff attempted advanced resuscitation, but the combined effects of U-47,700 and atizolam could not be reversed. He was pronounced dead that evening. Post-mortem analysis performed by forensic chemists at Chem Center determined the cause as combined drug toxicity, noting they had never previously encountered U-47,700 in a Western Australian case. Coroner Sarah Linton used the inquest to warn publicly of an explosion in designer drugs arriving by post through dark web supply routes, identifying at least 2 other fatal cases in the state involving the same substance: fake Valium death. On May 26, 2022, 18-year-old William Stephen Helstrip was found dead in his flat at 5 James Court, Kirkgate, Pocklington, in East Riding of Yorkshire, England. Will had recently secured his dream job as a coder and moved into his own place, a milestone that brought genuine pride, though he continued to struggle with anxiety and the lasting effects of years of bullying related to his cleft lip. Frustrated by difficulties accessing consistent medical support, he began buying what he believed were Valium-type benzodiazepines from online sellers, with some orders routed through dark web suppliers and delivered to his flat by Royal Mail. On an evening in May 2022, Will took tablets he thought were Valium to help him sleep, then settled in with snacks. He was later found dead, still clutching a packet of sweets, underscoring how rapidly the substance had acted. Family members and authorities were alerted on May 26 when he failed to respond, and police secured the flat, seizing pill packets and his electronic devices. Toxicology revealed a combination of substances including N-pyrrolidinoeternitazene, a nitazene-class synthetic opioid far more potent than fentanyl, along with other sedatives, with the coroner concluding the combination caused fatal cardiorespiratory depression. His parents had already told police he was receiving recorded delivery drug parcels from the dark web before his death, yet officers treated the case as non-suspicious and launched no formal investigation into the supply chain. East Riding and Hull coroner Professor Paul Marks issued a formal Prevention of Future Deaths report, criticizing Humberside police for failing to pursue the online suppliers and warning that inaction risked further death. Parents' DIY investigation. On December 18, 2020, 19-year-old William Melbourne, known as Will, was found dead at his family home in the Cheshire and Greater Manchester border area of England, after failing to respond to his parents. Will was a bright, tech-savvy teenager diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, whose anxiety and mental health difficulties had escalated from the age of 16, while formal support remained inconsistent and inadequate. Desperate for relief from anxiety and insomnia, and feeling failed by the services meant to help him, Will began ordering what he believed were oxycodone tablets from dark web vendors, attempting to manage his own symptoms. His parents discovered him unresponsive at home, with pills and paraphernalia nearby, and called emergency services, who confirmed he was dead. Initial investigations gave the family few answers, and the coronial process moved slowly. Unable to wait, his parents, Nicola and David Melbourne, with the help of a friend, undertook their own digital investigation, working through Will's devices, photographs, and messages to reconstruct what he had taken and from where he had ordered it. Toxicology eventually confirmed that the tablets Will ingested contained metronidazine, a synthetic opioid many times more potent than morphine, sold as oxycodone. At an inquest held in December 2023, more than 3 years after Will's death, the coroner formally recorded the cause as metronidazine toxicity following the purchase of dark web pills, returning a verdict of accidental death. Will's parents publicly criticized the years of delays and gaps in the inquest system, warning that more young people would die while lethal synthetic opioids remained easily available online without meaningful oversight. Telegram dealer death. On April 12, 2024, 23-year-old Connor Laycock was found dead in his bed at his home on Fern Street in Lancashire, England, after his girlfriend Amy and his sisters raised the alarm when he stopped responding to calls and messages. Connor had started taking drugs as a teenager, eventually escalating to heavy ketamine use, but by late 2023, he had made significant progress, cutting his consumption from around 3.5 grams daily to approximately 3 grams weekly, motivated by the desire to build a stable life for his 2-year-old son. While reducing his ketamine use, he continued sourcing benzodiazepines from a supplier operating under the name Pills R Us, contacted through the Telegram messaging app and linked to dark web markets, with packages delivered to his home. On April 12th, when Connor did not respond to anyone, family members and his girlfriend went to Fern Street and alerted police. Officers entered the home and found him dead in bed with evidence of recent drug use. Toxicology revealed multiple substances in his system, including benzodiazepines obtained from the dark web-linked supplier, all contributing to respiratory depression. At the inquest held at Accrington Town Hall, Assistant Coroner Laura Fox heard evidence of Connor's mental health history and prior periods of suicidal thoughts, but formally rejected any suggestion that his death was intentional, recording it as a drug-related accidental death and noting the role of online-sourced sedatives in his passing. His mother, Gemma, vowed to campaign publicly so that other families would not face the same loss, warning about how easily lethal prescription-strength sedatives could now be ordered through encrypted messaging apps tied directly into dark web supply chains. If you found value in this, a subscription helps me continue researching these stories. Thanks for watching.